right, welcome to Facebook Live. I'm Erica Fly, along with Dr. Joe O'Neill from Riley Hospital Pediatrics, Developmental Pediatrics, and we're going to talk about car seat safety. We're here to answer any questions that you have, so please post some questions and comments, and I will come up to the screen like this and look at it and read it, and we will try to answer your questions the best we can. So let's just start the conversation. What do you think is the most important thing a person needs to know about car seat safety?
Okay, well, I'm director of the Automotive Safety Program at Riley Hospital, and a lot of times friends will ask me, what's the best car seat that I can buy for my child? And so really, some general principles. The best car seat is a seat that will fit the car, that the child fits in, and it'll be used correctly every time. And really, that's the most important car seat that you can get for your child and for your car. So you need to be able to know what type of car seats best fit within your car, how to get them installed correctly, because sometimes those can be a challenge as well.
So when you say what car seat fits the size of your car, you're talking about SUVs. There's a different size car seat, regular car, different kind of car seat.
Right, vehicle seats vary between models and makes and manufacturers. So it's important to have the vehicle manufacturer's owner's manual available, as well as the manual that goes with the car seat. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it is tricky trying to figure out what's the best seat. So we have some general principles and guidelines for families that really do help. So for children from birth to 2 years of age, we recommend that they be rear-facing.
Okay.
We know that children who are rear-facing, especially in that second year of life, are about 5 times safer than those that are forward-facing.
Okay.
We also know that individuals, every time we try to go to an adult-sized seatbelt as our children get older, they end up losing safety. So unfortunately, the things that we wear, the 3-point harness, for a child is probably not the safest way of transporting them.
Okay. As we try to work out all the technical things here, someone's saying they're having a hard time hearing, so maybe we should look a little more towards this. Can you bring this any closer? Is it okay now? It's all right. All right.
It's good.
So, let's see. Is there a doll right now? Yeah, we have a doll right here.
Yes, we do. We have a bunch of different dolls and different sizes.
Let's just go ahead and do that right now, because I think a lot of people need to see it. And that's the best way to learn how to use a car seat properly, is to actually see how to do it. So
okay, let's go over the different types of car seats first. So this one here is a rear-facing only seat that oftentimes parents will buy for their children when they're going home for their infants when they're going home from the hospital. Mm-hmm. And this oftentimes will have a base that it will fit into, and you can click it out and carry it with you. Okay. The nice thing about this is that it has a handle, so you can carry the child. Now, a couple things to remember about these particular type of car seats. One, they should always be rear-facing. If it should be rear-facing, they should never be in the front seat in front of an airbag.
Right.
So that's one of the more important things to think about.
And you have to have this car seat in order to take the baby home,
yes,
right?
It's state law that all children under the age of 8 have to be in an appropriate type of child passenger restraint.
Okay.
After age 8, they're allowed to be in a 3-point harness, the classic seatbelt that you and I use. Mm-hmm. The problem is that if you look at and this is going beyond to the next step, but children, like 8 to 13 may not be big enough for a classic adult-sized lap shoulder harness. Mm-hmm. And so you might see them that have the seatbelt, the shoulder strap come across the head or the neck or the face, or they stick it underneath their arms, they put it behind their back, and they're not using it the way it's designed. Mm-hmm. So we'll get to it in a little bit about a booster seat that just raises a child up. Okay. So that's for those age groups. But when we start out, when we're taking kids home from the hospital, oftentimes families will use this rear-facing only car seat. And it has some convenience. It has a handle. It's able to carry the child. And the thing about it is that car seats should only be used for traveling, because bad things can happen if we leave kids in the car. We know that it can make reflux worse. We know that if they're asleep and their head tends to drop down, it can cause airways to have problems. So we like to, when they're done with the car, take the child out of the car seat.
Okay, I'm reading some of the questions here. I want to get to some of those for sure. What are some tips for children that don't like being in a car seat? Emily says, building up a tolerance for
Sure.
any tips or tricks that you can offer.
A lot of times that's a really great question, because oftentimes kids don't like to be in a car seat because they think that, well, it's babyish. It's a baby seat. They
Right.
don't want to be there. And so the manufacturers have done a lot to try to help make car seats more comfortable, more acceptable. The fact of the matter is, a child is safest in a car seat when they're in the car. So as long as they fit appropriately and they do not exceed the weight and length requirements that the car seat manufacturer has, then they should be in that car seat. Now, things that we can do: rewards for staying in the seat,
Right.
extra screen time, or extra,
Rewards always work,
yes,
right?
rewards are good, and being positive about how much better you are in that seat. If they still don't, some soft books, soft games, soft toys. Because remember, in a motor vehicle crash, God forbid you have a crash, but that book or that that iPad becomes a projectile and can hit you in the back of the head. So you really want to make sure the things that the kids are playing with in the car are soft and don't become a dangerous projectile in a motor vehicle crash.
I saw a question just go by. Do you have any recommendations for the best brand of car seat to use for newborns?
No, the nice thing about newborn seats is that they all have to fit and meet the same child passenger safety requirements. There's a federal motor vehicle safety standard that all the manufacturers meet. Now, there are some different things. Like I said, the one that fits your child best and the one that's easiest to use in your car is going to be the one that's best to buy for your newborn.
Okay.
And so a lot of times for small newborns or newborns that are born prematurely or infants who have low birth weight, they're going to be tested before they go home. And so they should be tested before they leave from the newborn nursery in the seat that they're going to go home in. So that's really important as well.
April Malone wants to know this, and I was wondering this too. Is it safe to put car seats in the middle of the back seat?
Well, actually, the safest part of the car is that middle position. Now, sometimes there are different ways of restraining the seat into the vehicle that may not be able to be used in the middle seat. For example, a rear-facing only child car seat, an infant car seat, may not be able to use the lower anchors. So they may be necessarily put on the outboard positions. For the most part, though, the safest place for the child is in the middle position.
Now, so why would you say that? Because I would think just the opposite, because they're in the middle, which means there's nothing to stop them right there, but an opening right through the front window.
If they're rear-facing.
Rear-facing.
And if they are, and if the seat's appropriately in the vehicle, installed in the vehicle, then you're going to have plenty of protection.
Okay.
And if you think about it, when you're rear facing, and most of the crashes are from the front, all that crash loads go along the back to the bony structures of the back that are easier to take crash forces than, let's say, my soft belly. Okay.
Kristen wants to know, how long should they be rear facing?
We recommend to at least 2 years of age, or to the highest weight or length that the car seat manufacturer recommends in the rear-facing position. Some great data out there that shows that rear-facing is safer, especially in that second year of life. And the reason for that is the child's head is proportionally bigger compared to the rest of the body. And so if they have a larger head and weaker neck muscles, keeping them in the forward-facing position in a crash puts a lot of force on their head and neck. And so from what we really know about crash dynamics, it's best to have that load all carried over a surface area rather than just a single point.
Okay. Joey writes, what about side airbags? Are those a concern, the side airbags we see now in cars?
Most of the child passenger safety seats are able to be placed near side airbags, so that really shouldn't. I would defer to someone to read the user manual of their vehicle and to see where they recommend car seat placement, because each vehicle manufacturer may have a different opinion on that.
This person says, I have a 10-year-old who is slightly smaller than most of their classmates. At that age, do they still need a booster seat?
If they are smaller, most likely yes. When you look at a growth chart and we look at that 8-year-old age that the state has for the state law for child passenger safety, and we look at where most children are tall enough to be in an adult-sized seatbelt, we usually see that most kids are 10 years of age would be better served in a booster seat. So 4'9" is usually the height that NHTSA recommends. I will say though, not every child has the same proportions. So what we recommend is that for a child who's thinking about using an adult-sized seatbelt, is that you sit them in the vehicle seat that you're going to use. Make sure their bottom's all the way back to the back of the seat. Make sure that their knees are able to go past the bench and bend at about a 90-degree angle. If their feet touch the floor, that's great. If not, that's okay. But the the shoulder belt has to go from the shoulder cap to the hips, and the lap belt low on top of the thighs, so that, and they be able to stay there and wear that belt the entire trip. Then they're ready to be in an adult-sized seatbelt.
Okay, thanks everyone for your questions. Trying to get through as many of them as we can. Lisa writes, I cannot get my car seat tight enough. It still moves even after I sat on the seat itself and someone else pulled the strap. What can I do to fix this?
A couple things to think about. One, that may not be a car seat that will work with your particular vehicle seat. And I hate to say that, but that sometimes happens. The other thing that I'd recommend is if you can get on the Automotive Safety Program website or the NHTSA website or carseatcheck.gov, where you can find different locations in our community that are child passenger safety technicians who can work with you to get that seat in correctly.
How should I place 2 car seats in my car? Carrie asks. I have a 4-year-old and a baby on the way.
Oh, that's congratulations. I think
Congratulations.
Oftentimes what will happen is that we will want to put the newborn in the middle because they're the furthest away from any type of side impact crash. And then which side that you choose for the 4-year-old in the booster seat or a 5-point harness, depending upon their size, would be up to the choice of the driver. But the important thing is that they're both buckled in on every trip correctly.
Okay. I saw a question go by a little while ago talking about the big thick coats having a problem with the straps, especially in the wintertime. We're seeing nice weather right now, but when you have those big winter coats on, it's kind of tough to get those straps around.
Well, you're absolutely right. And so a lot of times what we'll recommend a couple things is that if at all possible, have the car seat in the car, get the car warmed up, and let the child slip off that thick coat.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, like some of those real thick down coats, you try to get those straps as tight as possible, but in a crash, those things are going to compress even more, and they're going to unload the harness system. And when they unload the harness system, we're really not quite sure how well that car seat's going to keep that child in place during a motor vehicle crash.
Autumn wants to know, what car seat should my 5-year-old be in? A 5-year-old.
Well, it depends on the size of the 5-year-old. It depends upon their height and their weight. And sometimes what I would recommend for a 5-year-old most likely should be in a 5-point harness in a forward-facing direction. The manufacturers from the different car seats manufacturers across the country have heard us say that, the bigger kids need the same amount of protection as the smaller ones. And so they are very good at helping us get car seats for kids up to higher weights and heights.
All right, Rebecca wants to know, what's your opinion on car seat leather protectors underneath the car seat?
We usually don't recommend that we put anything under the car seat per se because you're going to want to have the seat itself and the integrity of that whole system. I would recommend looking at the vehicle manufacturer's owner's manual, as well as looking at the manual that goes with the car itself. I know if you have real nice leather seats, there's always that concern that you're going to damage the seats. And I understand that, but for the most part, you're going to change the crash dynamics because unless that leather pad on the seat has been tested, we don't know how it's going to work. Will it decrease the amount of friction? Will that seat move more? Will you have more movement in a crash situation? Can't really tell you. So I think it's important to make sure that you use it as it is in the manual.
Brianna's asking, we know there are children with certain conditions that you have to take in consideration, like dwarfism.
Sure, achondroplasia.
How long should they be rear-facing?
Well, let's talk about children with special needs just in general. Achondroplasia is just one of them, and I help run the complex care service, and so a lot of my kids have special needs, whether it be spina bifida, cerebral palsy, achondroplasia. specifically about achondroplasia. Children with achondroplasia tend to have larger heads. They tend to be shorter in terms of stature. And so actually a 3-year-old child with achondroplasia is actually about the size of a 1-year-old typically growing child. So that child can be rear-facing for a much longer period of time. As a child with achondroplasia grows and gets bigger, then being in a 5-point harness really is the safest way to transport. And then when they get into their teenage years and start driving, then there's a whole other set of conditions that we need to look at in terms of distance from the steering wheel, ability to reach the pedals, and driving. So there's a lot of things that need to be addressed for a young person with achondroplasia as they start entering the driving years.
We talked about the middle position in the back seat with the car seat facing, rear facing.
Right.
This person's question is, where did it go? Is it okay to have a booster seat in the middle seat belt? Crystal wants to know.
Sure, as long as there's a lap shoulder belt there for the child to be protected and restrained, absolutely, that's a fine position.
Okay. PJ writes, don't forget that latch installations have a weight limit.
Right.
So the weight limit of the car. Okay.
Okay, so there are two different ways of securing a child seat into a car. The first one is using the seat belt, and the second one's known as lower anchors and tethers for children, also known as latch. Now, latch was an effort by those of us who work in child passenger safety to make it easier for families to install a car seat, because we know that up to 7 to 8 out of 10 car seats aren't really installed ideally and perfectly. So, but the good news about that is that if you look at infants, we have dropped the rate of infant motor vehicle fatalities by almost 75%. For toddlers and older children, more than 50%. So these, even though they're not perfect, are working well. So how do we get them to work better? Well, there are things that we have tried, and latch is an effort. And so what latch is, and I'll use this car seat to demonstrate. So this is the top tether. Now, if you look on the back of your, let's say a passenger sedan, you will see that there are 3 little boxes there that have anchors on them. And those anchors are for the top tether. And this slips right over. You lift up the little case, hook that on, tighten it down. And in both forward-facing crashes, this will decrease the amount of movement that the child has by about 30%. And it also has been shown to improve the safety in side impact crashes. The other part is the lower tethers, or the lower anchors, and that are these clips right here. Now, if you ever sat down to the back seat of a car and felt something hit you in the bottom, and you look and you see a little black, little like rectangle or a little hook, and that's where these lower anchors go. And lower anchors will hook over this, click in, you cinch it down, and there should be not more than 1 inch of movement in forward and back and side to side direction at the base.
Okay.
So that's what the question was talking about. Now, both the seatbelt system and the latch system are in and of itself individually fine, and there's no need to use both.
Okay. What about expiration dates? Someone's asking, how long can you actually use a car seat?
Well, that's a great question, because there's always a question, well, how, why does it go out of date?
Yeah.
Every time you place a child in there and you're using it and the child's strapped in and you hit the brakes or you accelerate, you're flexing this material. You're flexing the plastic. And so plastic is an organic material that has a lifespan. And on the car seats, you're going to find an expiration date or a built-on date. And like this one here, this one says that it was manufactured 9/26/13.
Let's show everyone where you
so
can find
this
that.
one is here. Well, they're all different in different
Right
vehicles.
here.
So,
Is that what we're talking
yeah,
about?
I think so.
All right. 9/20. Okay.
And
This
so
is an old one.
most car seats are good for about 5 or 6 years. And what you need to do is pull out the owner's manual for the car seat, and it will tell you. On this particular seat, it is on the side here. And once you find it, it will give you the car seat, sort of like born on date or expiration date.
Okay.
And I'm not picking up on this. Oh, it's in here, and
Is it here?
in the I bet it is. There it is.
Yep, here it is right here.
Yep.
Somewhere
And another thing that's important about that, there is a warranty seat or warranty tag that's important to send in, so that if there is a recall, then they will be able to get a hold of you and replace the seat. And this one was ready on expire. Now this one gives you an expiration date, whereas the other one gave you a manufacture date. Usually these are good for 6 years, and so this one expires in September of 2019.
Erica asks, I heard it shouldn't be moved very often. Once it's latched properly, it shouldn't be moved. What do you think about moving? Because I have nephews, and every time it's time for me to get my nephews, we have to take the car seat out of my sister's car and put it in my car. And
you know, I don't think there is any really good answer to that, other than the fact that if you have to move the car, you got to move the car seat. And as long as you're able to get it installed correctly every time, you're probably just as well.
Let's use, you brought dolls, so I want to use the dolls. Show us what you think is the most important thing that you see that we should know using these dolls.
This guy.
Again, if you're just joining the conversation, Erica Fly along with Dr. O'Neill here, and we were talking about car seat safety, something very important that all parents need. And even if you're not a parent and you're toting around your nephews or your nieces like I am, this is information you need to know.
Right, so let's go over just once again the different types of car seats. This one is the rear-facing only car seat. This is designed to only be rear-facing. It may or may not have a base on the bottom that you can click in and out of, or this can be used without the base as well. And it's rear-facing, and this one will take you up to about 35 pounds.
Okay.
Now, the next seat after that is a convertible car seat. Convertible car seats are convertible. They can go rear-facing up to a certain weight, and then you can turn them around.
What is that weight?
Forward-facing.
Rear-facing.
Rear-facing for this one will go up to 35 pounds.
Okay.
And then forward-facing, it will go up to 40 pounds. And there are some rear-facing convertible car seats that can go up to 50 or 60 pounds.
Okay.
And then there's also a height limit on this one. Both in the rear-facing and the forward-facing. And as long as you're within those parameters, then you're going to be fine.
Okay.
And so this will go both in the rear-facing position and in the forward-facing position, and it has both the latch as well as can be used with a seat belt.
Okay.
And then the next thing, once the child goes from and outgrows the weight and length of a 5-point harness in the forward-facing condition, there are a couple different options. There is a combination seat which can be used with a 5-point harness, and then the harness, once they exceed that length, can be taken off, and then using a 3-point adult lap shoulder belt. Now this is a booster seat.
Right.
This doesn't have the harnesses, and all it does is, like I mentioned earlier, is raise the child up so that an adult-sized seat belt fits them appropriately. If you think about it, you know, if you have a small child and you put your coat on them, it's not going to fit correctly. And so it's important to make sure that the seatbelt system of the car fits the child right.
Okay. What are we doing? You can use the dolls
Sure.
as a demonstration if you want. What are most people doing wrong when it comes to strapping your child into a seat?
Turning the child forward-facing way too soon.
Okay.
And so we really think that rear-facing to 2 years of age is the recommendation that the American Academy of Pediatrics has made, and it's in compliance with NHTSA and the other major, like, Safe Kids Worldwide. Once there, a couple things that I see is that the seat's installed too loose. Sometimes I see a child with a car in it where the seat itself is just placed there and not anchored.
Okay.
Or the seat's anchored fine, but the child's not strapped in with the harnesses.
Okay.
Then if it's rear facing, you want to have the harnesses at or below, and they should be snug. And by snug, what I mean is you shouldn't be able to pinch it together. So we used to say 2 fingers, but if you can pinch that together, it's too loose. So you can cinch up the seat and make it a little tighter.
So it should be as tight as you
comfortably can put on the child.
Because sometimes I feel like, is that too tight on him? I'm not really sure.
No, it should be snug.
Tight.
So if you can pinch it, then it's too loose. If you can't, then it's probably just fine. And so you want to make it so that the child's comfortable, especially, and that's where the coats come in, the thick coats, because that thick coat will compress, and you can just tie that down and down and down, and it gives you, it can make it very difficult to get a good fit. And then you adjust those straps, and then the children take off the jacket, and there's a big gap between there. So it's always important to make sure that the seats are appropriately adjusted for the child, giving the clothing, the weather, and everything else that goes along with it.
Okay.
The other thing to think about is that in a rear-facing seat, you want to hold the child down and into the seat, so that the back strap should be below the shoulders. But when you turn them forward-facing, you want to hold them back. And so the strap can be at or above. And so it's just, those are fine points to talk about.
Okay. Interesting question here. A lot of parents see this, that bobbing head when the child falls asleep in the car seat and the head is bobbing all over the place. Is that safe? Should the head be restrained in some kind of a way, or is it safe when you got that child falling asleep with a bobbing head?
See, that's why we're very adamant about when you're done with the motor vehicle ride, get the child out of the car seat, because we do know that when a child drops their head, they can have problems with airway. Now that's why rear facing is so nice, because rear facing is somewhat of an incline, and so when the car seat rear facing is in position, this has a lot more of a recline that will help keep the child's head in a neutral position. And some of the rear-facing convertible car seats can also do the same and have a recline feature. So if you have a newborn that has low head tone and maybe be flopping back and forth, some of our manufacturers are building an insert with it. And we don't want to add anything underneath the child because we don't know what's going to happen in a crash. So we really try to discourage aftermarket products. That said, if it comes with a seat, been tested with a seat, that's great to use. If it doesn't come with that, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll take a towel and put it on either side of the infant.
That's a good idea.
Yep. And it is, I'm going to borrow this little guy here.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit
Turn this a little more towards you.
adjustment side here. And I'm just going to slip him in here and get this all tightened down.
All right, tell us what you are demonstrating.
So I'm putting the child into the car seat, getting the seat adjusted. Now this chest clip should go at the armpit level. And I don't usually, then what I do is I tighten this down. And this is, there we go. And we try to, this here it is, there we go. Tighten this up, and then I think I might have to readjust this at one point.
Okay.
But what we do is we tighten this down, and then we adjust this, and you have to do it a little bit at a time, but it gets the child into the seat, into the right position. And so it should be taut enough that I am not able to strap to pinch.
You can't pinch it.
So if I was like this one here,
Right.
this is way too loose. So
Yeah,
what
because you can
would
obviously
want-
pinch that.
Right. And so we tighten this down, and we get this one in here. And I didn't have time to really adjust this particular set of straps before we came on. But it comes down here, and it should fit with the chest clips here. This should be at or below. It should be tight and snug. Now sometimes if there's a big gap here, I would put like a washcloth or something to take up the space.
Okay.
Because really that's not in the load path. But if you have a child who's going to be going back and forth, I would put a roll here, so it will help maintain the head in a stable position.
Okay, that's a very good idea.
Okay.
Do you see a lot of people using car seats incorrectly?
We do, but you know, I'm thrilled to know that parents are using car seats because
Right.
they are a public health success story. Like I said, we've dropped the rate of infant motor vehicle fatalities by 75% and 55% for toddlers. So these things do work. Now, do I like to see them used correctly every time? Absolutely. And sometimes it can be hard to try to figure out what's the best way to use it, and there are resources in our community. There are child passenger safety technicians, or things called car seat fitting stations that will have people who are trained as child passenger safety technicians will help you install your car seat into the vehicle. And there's car seat clinics that are done periodically throughout the community, at different times of year, especially more in the summertime. Like at the zoo, we are going to be sponsoring one in June. And so there are different opportunities for families. And if a family wants to look up for one, there is on our website, preventinjury.org, there is a place where you can find car seat technicians. The NHTSA website at carseatcheck.gov. And the American Academy of Pediatrics has an app that you can buy for Android and Apple that will help you, given the weight of the child and the size of the child, be able to get the car seat, the right car seat for them. And there are videos that will help you put the car seat in correctly. And I will try to pull it up here real quick. And
while you're doing that, I'll get to a couple more of these questions. Thank you all for all of your questions.
So this is the car seat check. This is this is designed by the American Academy of Pediatrics. It's $1.99. It's for use on Android as well as Apple phones and the iStore and the Android store. And this is an excellent opportunity. You just put the child's height, weight, and age, and it will give you a whole listing of different types of seats. And it will give you, it's a multimedia where it will give you videos of how to install your car seat and things to look for. So it's a very helpful tool to use for families.
Here's an interesting question, because we know not every child is built the same. What if the child is too long and you have to have them rear facing? What about their legs?
Oh, that's a really important question, because parents ask me that all the time. When we look at the crash data, we see that it's rare that a child in a rear-facing car seat has leg injuries. We usually don't see the leg injuries until they're actually turned forward-facing. And I think part of the reason is that the legs are like little hinges and like little shock absorbers, and so they will move a lot more. And the softest part of the car is that rear-facing, that back of that rear-facing, that seat. So it's okay for them, and kids will cross their legs or they'll bend their knees, and they'll be pretty comfortable there.
Okay. As we start to wrap this up, what do you think are maybe the top 3 tips that you could give someone when it comes to car safety seats? What do they need to leave here with? The most important things.
The way I handled my son. I'll sort of go on that.
Okay.
I kept him rear-facing as long as I could, because I know that they're safer rear-facing than forward-facing. The second thing that I would argue is to keep them in a 5-point harness as long as possible. Because if you think about NASCAR, those guys are driving 200 miles an hour, and while they have special cars, if you look at what they're driving in, it looks like a car seat. It's 5-point harness, yeah. So they know what we know, that 5-point harness provides an extra degree of safety. And then last thing, I didn't put my son into an adult-sized seatbelt until he was ready. And by those 5 criteria: bottom up against the back of the seat, making sure that his knees went past the bench, and his feet could, if they had to, touch the floor. I wasn't going to worry about that. But that the shoulder belt went from the shoulder cap to the hips, and the lap belt flat across the top of the thighs. And that's true for women who are expecting as well, to make sure that lap belt is on top of the thighs and not over the abdomen.
All right. Dr. O'Neill, we thank you so much. You have a lot of fans. A lot of people have been saying hi to you on here.
Well, that's great. I really appreciate having everybody tune in. I think this is really an excellent opportunity. I hope we do this again.
Yeah, and of course, if you have any more questions about car seat safety, you can always talk to your pediatrician about it and get the answers you need.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.